Professor Eric Martin here, and welcome to the setup for Unit 10 for Gandhian Ethics and Values. In this unit, we are focused around the fifth and final part of Gandhi's experiments with truth. And the time period for the section is 1914 to 1921. So Gandhi has returned to India, this time for good. World War I is cooking up and, in full swing. And there's a lot happening in his life during this time period. And it's really during this time period that Gandhi begins to become a real political entity. This is where he begins to become famous. People were aware of him based on what he was doing in South Africa, international press. But it's during this time period from 1914 to 1921 that Gandhi really makes the name for himself. So, just a few of the highlights that you'll come into contact with to keep aware of. In 1915, Gandhi founds another ashram, another commune. Don't underestimate the role of communal living and the role of communes in Gandhi's understanding about how the world ought to function. Because when we get into the material after spring break on Hind Swaraj, where he's trying to look at how could you create a free India, guess what his basic building block is? He's looking at his experience living in communes with other people, and he's like, this is how it works. In 1917, he works with the indigo growers in the Indian state of Bihar. He winds up leading an individual satyagraha. Okay? In 1918, he leads a satyagraha on behalf of the mill workers in the province of, or the state of Ahmedabad. Later on in that same year, he leads another satyagraha on land revenue issues in Gujarat state. In 1919, he leads an all-India satyagraha against the Rowlatt Acts. And then later on, this is the satyagraha that he suspends and claims was his Himalayan miscalculation, that satyagraha in general. So he's really starting to put things into practice that he's learned in South Africa. He becomes the editor of not one, but two different journals. So pay attention to why he thought that was important. And it's also because he thought that was important that we have so many of his ideas passed on to us. He becomes involved in issues of the caliphate. Now, you might need to do a little quick search, making sure you understand what that is. Because basically the short version is the Ottoman Empire was on the wrong side of World War I. And what happens when you're on the wrong side? You lose a lot of territory. The Ottoman Empire, that's modern-day Turkey, was the caliphate. It was seen as a central piece for the Islamic world and for the Muslim world. And the whole issue between Britain and France, what should we do with the Ottoman Empire? By the way, that stuff becomes modern-day Iraq. And so it's pretty important to kind of get a sense about what happens to the Ottoman Empire. But that was also affecting Muslims in India because they see the caliphate as representing them as well. And what are the Allies doing, the British who rule India, doing to a political and religious figurehead state that we recognize? And Gandhi's trying to soothe tensions in India over the fate of the caliphate. And then in 1920, Gandhi leads a non-cooperation movement that we only kind of scratch the surface of in the readings, in which lawyers stop participating in courts. Keep that in mind when we read Hind Swaraj. Students stop participating at school. There's an emphasis on not purchasing clothing that you haven't made yourself. There's this whole non-cooperation movement. Now, keep in mind that Gandhi assumes that the reader already understands about the non-cooperation movement because it was so big. He just goes, well, we don't have to go into that because everybody knows what happened. So y'all might have to do a little bit of recon on that. But the point is that during this period of his life, there is a lot happening as he is experimenting with putting the things he learned in South Africa into practice. So just in addition to ethical dilemmas, just kind of keep up with that stuff. Now, one second. Now, Gandhi goes off onto a lot of tangents, as is his custom, right? Interesting tangents that are useful for us. But sometimes it makes it difficult to understand exactly what's going on in terms of what is this struggle about. So, in addition to the reading, I want you to watch the video from Films on Demand that I have linked up. It is the second part of the 3-part BBC Gandhi series. Now, we watched the first part way back when, and it covered his life up into 1914. The second part takes 1914. It goes a little bit further than the Gandhi book does, but that's fine. Watch the video, Gandhi's Rise to Fame. It's going to help place the readings into context. Again, because Gandhi assumes the reader has some knowledge. The other thing that I like about this video is it is a little bit more critical of Gandhi than maybe we're typically used to, and I think that's a good thing. There is not a test over the video, okay? Just watch it for better understanding of the readings. And on the discussion boards, feel free to bring it up as you see fit. I didn't, write into the rubrics, you must discuss the video along with it. Just go ahead and do it. How's it compare with the readings? Okay. Speaking of the discussion boards, if your last name begins with the letters M through Z, then you have a formal essay due this week. It's the same system as before. Your essay's due by Wednesday. Get those things up. Give it a title so that we know what ethical issue you're focusing on. Try to focus on one issue. Create that essay in a formal writing style. See if we can bring some discussion into things. Focus on revisions and high quality writing. No matter what your last name begins with. If you want to work in some extra credit for the week, some extra credit for the course, then construct some responses, some high quality responses to the different issues that people bring up. Now, like I said last week, I really wanted to alter the structure of how we were doing these because I don't feel like it's really conversational. But here we are. This is what's familiar. We're going to roll with it for right now. Okay. That's so. I'm just looking through the online thing here. Watch Gandhi's Rise to Fame, the video. Read the biography. There's a short assessment over the autobiography. Follow the link to the discussion boards. I got one more thing, but I'm going to come to that in just a minute. After spring break, we are going to focus on Hind Swaraj. You will be able to find that online for free. It's a booklet, 100 and something pages, 20 chapters, but it's deep. And it is a structured argument, one chapter to the next, building on the next thing. You might want to read it twice. It doesn't take long. The details for how that assignment's going to work will be forthcoming. I'll probably, if I can get to them by the end of the week, I will, but more likely it'll be over spring break. But the discussion system is going to be more or less just like we did with the Bhagavad Gita. Everybody's going to pick a chapter. You are going to explain what's happening in that chapter to the class. That will provide some discussion points for us to discuss the greater meanings of the various chapters. And then someone will pick the next chapter, connect it. This is the building block, and here's the next phase. Now again, you don't have to swallow everything Gandhi says. On one hand, if you want to have, 75, 80% description, this is what the chapter says, this is what I think it means. And then if you want to have another, 20% of your own ideas, I don't really know that, here's some questions I have about it. Here's some ways I'm not sure that it's really practical. Feel free. Those are good ways to get us discussing. But my point is whether or not I have the details laid out for the Units 11 and Units 12. Over the break, if you want to, you can begin your readings. Simply take your notes in such a way that you will be able to explain each chapter as we go. And just like with the Bhagavad Gita, we're going to take 2 weeks on it. So I think it's more or less going to be the same structure. Units 13 and 14 are to be announced. You're not going to get any readings from me. You should be focused on your formal essays. You should be doing outside readings on whatever your formal essay topic is, whether those are looking at additional Gandhian stuff or looking at more contemporary stuff on your issue. Just sort of depends on what direction you've gone. There will be a couple of videos that we'll watch during that time to try to put things together. And there'll be, probably a couple of reflection pieces, right? I'm thinking of one in particular on the autobiography. I have some questions for you. More along the lines of how did you enjoy it? How did you experience it, with sort of a more reflective type piece than these formal essays. But I have some videos that I want us to look at, both in terms of Gandhi's life and then also how it gets applied later on. But my main point is that after spring break, for me, the assigned reading is the 100 page, maybe 110 page booklet, Hind Swaraj, and that's it. Everything else, in terms of what you're reading, ought to be focused on your formal essays. Now, we get back to the thing I said I'd talk about in a minute. I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of action there's been on this formal essays discussion thread. That's fine. It's been optional until now, right? Okay. So one of the things I want you to do this week before Saturday is I want you to go to the Unit 15 discussion folder. And I want you to watch that video that I did, just explaining what the assignment is. I want you to view the criteria of the video, or of the assignment. I want you to make sure you know what it is. And then I want you to go to our discussion boards. And I want you to go to the formal papers link, formal essay link. And I want you to write a short proposal, short topic proposal. Look at the ones that are already there. The two that are already there are pretty good. All you need to do, I don't know, 5, 6 sentences. It doesn't have to be too sophisticated. I just want to know that you have a topic and that you're thinking about it a little bit so that you've got something to work with. Because you want something to work with before spring break. And I'm not saying that you should, spend your spring breaks working on this paper. Maybe you should. But what I am saying is that sometimes trying to cook up an idea is the tough part of a formal research paper or a formal essay. And it'd be nice if you had the idea cooked up before you had time to work on it. Okay, I've got this designated time to work on it, units 13 and units 14, so I'm not going to worry about it until then. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like maybe if you cooked up the idea before then, collected the reading material you would need before then, kind of looked at the reading material to make sure it was the right material before then when week 13 shows up, you've got all the stuff you need, it's all assembled, you can just start doing it. If you don't do it that way, the danger you run into is you get to week 13 and you have a hard time thinking of a topic. Something happens. Had old friends come into town, wasn't able to get to it. Oops. Or, wow, I thought it'd be a lot easier to come up with this topic, but it didn't come to me as quick as I thought it would. Whoops. So we can start hashing it out now. The other thing is, I've got time now too. So if you want to run something by on the discussion boards, you'll probably get a pretty quick answer from me. We get into week 13, we get into week 14. I'm going to answer those things as much as I can, but now my semester's heating up too. So this is a good time for both of us. So anyway, get something up on the formal essay in our discussion boards by this Saturday, just to get your brain thinking about things. Even if you don't want any feedback from me, just this is what I'm thinking of, this is where I'm going. That's that. Anyway, as usual, you got any questions about the class, you've got things we need to talk about, feel free to come by the office during my office hours. Feel free to send me an email through Blackboard, and we'll set up an appointment if we can't sort it out through the email. Feel free to call me. I'm more available than the kind of office hours and phone stuff looks like. So anyway, having said that, hope you enjoy the last part of the Gandhi book, and I will see you next time.